Hello. Okay. So I'm waiting for people to pop in. Hello. Waiting for people to pop in so we can start this. Um, we're doing the Lori Daybell trial, day one. Um, this was a request from Miss Muddy, so we could do this instead of doing, I don't know, whatever I thought of. So we'll just do this instead. We have ice cream. This is brown butter bourbon ice cream. There's no bourbon in it, it's just flavor. Hey, that Red Sox guy, if he comes, you don't gotta mute him or kick him out. And I was thinking about that Ornikin guy also. I was thinking text doesn't really have context. So we're going to have to, again, give it a couple times. Maybe we're not seeing right off the bat. Maybe just talk to him and then, like, if it's still like, are you being rude? Ask him. And if he's like, ignore you, then mute him or whatever. It's something like that. You know? Fred's having some ice cream. Michael, are you having ice cream? Is Miss Muddy here? No? All right. Well, we're gonna go here and do this. Okay. So now we're waiting for the court. And it should only be a matter of like, huh. No, and most nobody doesn't. And I mean, technically, I am an addict. My addiction is in remission, but I am an addict. But I am an addict. I can't really do anything anymore. And I've been clean for April 17th will be 14 years. April 17th, I've been sober 14 years. And I've been out of prison 12 years. Yep, it's a good time. And I used to take weed as a drug, but now, as much as I don't want it to be, it's medicine. I'd much rather get. Yeah, there is a moral code. But some people Just don't get it.
Is if the defense can produce
Oh,
text messages or some.
the trial judge is talking. Is anybody here? All right. So let's do this. Wait, who's? I don't know. Okay. I don't know what's happening. There we go. Wait. What is happening in life? No one knows. There we go.
Information to provide to the court that shows he does in fact have relevant information, he might be called as a witness. But so far, the court can't find that Mr. Boudreau has any relevant information to this case. Therefore, Mr. Boudreau struck again without prejudice from the witness list. He can remain in the courtroom.
Okay. The guy they're talking about real quick is Anthony. His name is Anthony Boudreau, something like that. He's Daybell's niece's husband. They also tried to kill him, but I'm not exactly sure why he'd be a witness in a trial that had absolutely zero to do with him. I don't know why they would try to be getting him. Maybe as a character witness, but they're not allowed to do a lot of character evidence, and her character is shit to begin with. Wait, where are we at?
We're going to bring the jury in. The other matters that were raised by the defense, we'll talk about at another time when the jury is not waiting.
People like that just say shit to say shit, Michael. They don't care about any of it, really. They don't. Man. Is he talking? It looks like he's talking.
Testified to by a witness who has been sworn in.
Wait a
and is
minute.
answering.
Okay, so
by a
there.
witness who has been sworn in and is answering questions from the witness stand. Therefore, it is important to remember that what is said by both the prosecutor and the defendant in opening statements and later in closing arguments is not evidence. The purpose of an opening statement is to help you prepare for anticipated evidence. The state can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are you going to use, yeah, put a mic over there.
So I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple days. Mel, too. She can't go.
Okay, this is a prosecutor. I do not know her name, but she's an Arizona prosecutor.
To Utah. They're planking some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm left alone. I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thanks for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. Lori Daybell, the woman seated over here, wrote this to her brother, Alex Cox, on July 9th of 2019, 2 days before they killed Charles Vallow. But to understand why this is so meaningful, why this is relevant, you have to understand the context. So let's talk about it. In July of 2019, Lori Vallow was married to Charles Vallow. Lori Vallow lived here in Arizona, Chandler. Charles Vallow lived in Texas. In July of 2019, Lori Daybell was Lori Vallow, married to Charles Vallow. In July of 2019, Lori Vallow wanted to be Lori Daybell, wife of Chad Daybell. And in July of 2019,
And Chad Daybell looks just like Peter Griffin. Look, not kidding, look him up.
Vallow wanted to keep the same lifestyle that she had with Charles.
Hi, Miss Muddy, love you. See you when you get home.
And she could get all of this if Charles was dead.
And stop texting and driving.
She could marry Chad Daybell and become Lori Daybell. She would get a $1 million life insurance policy from Charles Vallow. She would get Social Security for herself and their son, JJ, as a child of a dead spouse. And all of this would be true if Charles Vallow was dead. So what about Nephi? Well, Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, and Alex Cox all believed that those who disagreed with them were dark, possessed by evil spirits, sometimes called Z's or zombies. Sometimes they had names for these evil spirits like Ned. Lori, Chad, and Alex used religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a story of Nephi, a prophet, who was directed by the Holy Spirit to kill Laban, to obtain brass plates and secure the long-term prosperity of Nephi's descendants. Lori used this religion and the story of Nephi as justification to kill Charles Vallow, just like Nephi killed Laban. On July 9th of 2019, Lori Vallow invoked Nephi when she messaged Alex to provide them with that religious authority to kill Charles. After months of trying to get rid of him, they were finally ready to be like Nephi. So how did this begin? We go back to 2018. Lori Vallow met Chad Daybell. You will learn that in November of 2018, that Chad Daybell came to Arizona for a Preparing the People conference. And he and others stayed at Lori and Chad's house. Charles was actually out of town with JJ. Lori and Chad acted as if there was nothing between them, but nothing could be further from the truth. By January of 2019, Lori Vallow claimed that Charles Vallow was possessed by an evil spirit that she called Ned. You will see text messages where Lori and Alex refer to him as Ned. During this trial, you're going to hear from some women who initially were close in Lori's circle. These women will tell you they met her through the Preparing the People conference.
The Ruby Frankie.
They are spiritual
This is
women within the
before
LDS
Ruby
Church.
Frankie.
And initially they found Lori's spirituality infectious. But the more they listened to Lori,
Well,
the more
I'm
they
sure they
started to
both happened at the same
find
time.
concern with what she was
But
saying.
the
One of
abusive
them
mother
called it
was caught
red
after
flags.
this.
Lori began saying things like she didn't need to repent, that she was beyond that. And you'll hear from these women that that goes against everything that their religion follows. Everyone must repent. You will hear from Serena Sharp that in March of 2019,
That's a
she
new
attended a
name.
girls' weekend with Lori and some other women.
That's a new name.
They went to the temple, they had lunch, they did volunteer activities, and then Lori asked them to do something a little unusual. She told them that her husband was possessed by an evil spirit, and she referred to that as Ned. She told them that Charles was no longer in his body. She asked them to come together and try to cast out this evil spirit. Serena will tell you that she didn't ask Lori what would happen to Charles if that evil spirit went. She only knew that she had said Charles was already gone. She didn't know if he would come back or his body would just die. Later that month, on March 26th of 2019, Alex Cox texted his sister, Lori Vallow, and said, quote, "Ned is still alive, just confirmed." Lori responded, "It's not Ned. It's a new one. Ned is gone. No one has seen him, right? Just talk to him, question mark." Alex said, "Correct. Charles' body is alive." "What did you learn, question mark?" Lori responded, "A lot. Still working on it. We'll call you later." As the year went by, Lori and Alex became more determined to get rid of Charles Vallow's body, whatever they wanted to call him. You will hear from Christina Atwood that she attended a gathering on June 9th of 2019. Again with Lori and some close friends, but this time Alex Cox attended. This was the first time she had met him. Christina will tell you that she heard Alex say that he just wanted to kill Charles. In fact, she heard him say this a couple times. And she heard Lori say, in response, that she had been drugging Charles, crushing up JJ's pills and putting them in Charles's protein drinks. Christina will tell you she was so disturbed.
What? That's new evidence. Miss Muddy, that's new, isn't it? It's a new name and new evidence, right? It's different. That's wild. I did not expect to hear new evidence. Wow.
By this, that she actually went and confronted Lori the next day and told her that if Charles ended up dead, she would have to go to the police. That's how disturbed she was. Now, Lori, of course, said it was all a joke. What else could she say? But 1 month later, Alex and Lori created that situation to be like Nephi and killed Charles. What about Charles? You're going to learn that Charles and Lori had been together for a long time. They had adopted one of Charles's family members' children, JJ. JJ was everything.
Drunken Wizard! Welcome! I miss you. We're watching the Arizona versus Lori Daybell. She just dropped some new evidence and some new people. So, this is fucking wild because I did not expect there to be new evidence. So let's see. And I hope you had a great day today.
To Charles. JJ was the reason Charles and Lori were still together. You'll learn that Charles knew about Lori's beliefs, that he was called Nick or Ned or some name. You will learn that Charles told a lot of people about this. And on February 26th of 2019, Charles made a big decision. He had a $1 million life insurance policy, and his wife, Lori Vallow, had been the beneficiary. He changed it. He changed it to his sister, Kay Woodcock. You will learn he did not have to notify Lori about it, and she had no idea. You'll learn that Charles desperately wanted to bring Lori back to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You will learn that he was close with Lori's brother, Adam, and he was reaching out to him during this time period. You will hear from Adam. Adam will tell you that
I have fresh coffee. Everyone, so you can get some. And I have protein powder if you need some protein. I have protein powder and fresh coffee and ice cream.
he himself had heard the defendant say things that were outside the LDS religion, that she was translated. Charles was possessed. He knew she was no longer following the LDS faith. Then, June 28th, Charles found out that Lori and Chad were having an affair. You will hear that he reached out to Lori about it, Chad's wife, and out to Adam Cox about it. Now you're going to hear about a lot of these things because the police executed numerous search warrants. You're going to hear that they executed search warrants on cell phone records, cell tower records, and iCloud accounts. You're going to learn that an iCloud account is basically a service through Apple where you can store everything, photos, emails, documents, whatever you want. This can be intentional.
Hey, you want to know what's funny? My favorite ice cream, the ice cream that I'm eating right now, is called Private Selection Brown Butter Bourbon Ice Cream. Brown butter bourbon caramel ice cream. Yeah.
Or sometimes it can be unintentional. Your phone or your computer may be saving items there without you even realizing it. You'll learn that for years.
Look, she's not lying about that. And another layer of protection that you can do for yourself is go into your OneDrive account and delete all the stuff in your OneDrive, because that is where they will go first.
Lori Vallow had an iCloud account that was loriforstyle@icloud.com. But after Charles learned about Chad Daybell on that June 28th, she created a new iCloud account, LollyTime@iCloud account. Many of these text messages between Lori and others that you're going to hear about at trial were recovered from those two iCloud accounts. You're also going to learn about Charles.
I told my dad the indica is the heroin of weed. Sativa is the cocaine of weed. Indica is the heroin of weed.
His cell phone. The police eventually recovered it, and they were able to extract the data, look at the messages and things that had been in there. And you're going to learn about those text messages with Adam Cox from July 9th through the 11th. You're going to hear from Adam that they were talking about an intervention. about maybe recording Lori saying these things and taking those recordings to the stake president, or just confronting the stake president about it. They didn't have an exact plan. But on July 9th, Adam agreed to fly to Phoenix to help try to talk to his sister, talk to the stake president, get her back into this faith. Ultimately, Adam flew to Phoenix on the 10th as
Don't
Charles.
forget to press like and subscribe, everyone.
Adam will tell you that he actually, when he got his reservation on the 9th from Charles, reached out to his brother, Alex. He asked to stay with him. And Alex said, sure. You'll see phone records. They had a conversation about it. But when Adam flew into Phoenix on the 10th, remember, that's after that message by Lori that he needed to stay close to her.
Okay.
Adam tried texting his brother. Adam tried calling his brother. And Alex didn't respond. Adam didn't know that his brother Alex had been summoned to help his sister Lori be like Nephi, that it was time to kill Charles. The text messages from Lori.
Wait, I think he did though. Remember? Because Adam was texting Charles and Charles said, I think they're up to something. Adam did know that Alex was there.
Lori to Alex about that intervention that she knew about, and being like Nephi show that by the evening of July 9th of 2019, Lori knew that Charles was trying to have an intervention. An intervention. In that text message, remember, she said they are trying to have an intervention. She knew it was Charles and others. She also told her brother he had to stay close for the next couple
it
days.
Was Charles
Because she
and
knew
Adam.
that she was going to be seeing Charles on the 11th, when he came over to pick up their son, JJ, to take him to school. She told him, it's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. A few minutes after Lori had texted Alex that message on July 9th that they were going to be like Nephi, Alex called his sister Lori, and they talked for over 56 minutes, planning how they were.
I just want to say, people like Lori Daybell and Ruby and Jody, they are the reason I read the Bible the way I do, because they use this shit to trick you. And people should know what it says so they're not tricked by people like this. Because this is absolutely terrible. Because Das Bible doesn't say a fucking thing about any of this.
Going to get rid of Charles.
Sorry.
Alex would stay close
I'm off my soapbox.
with his gun, and he and Lori would be like Nephi. July 10th of 2019 is a day before Charles was killed. We know from text messages that by 7:18 p.m., Alex was already at Lori's house. He brought a garbage bag with some clothes and an orange duffel bag with his .45 caliber handgun and 2 extra magazines of ammunition. He was prepared. We also know that the evening of July 10th, Charles sent a message to Lori letting her know that he would be over at 7:30 a.m. the next day to pick up JJ, to take him to school. Lori and Alex knew exactly when this murder would happen and where it would happen. They just had to make sure that Charles stayed in the house. You'll hear that on the evening of July 10th, Charles spent his last night alive on a date. He had been on several dating apps and appeared to be moving on. You will hear from his date, Nancy Jo, that she and Charles had met on an LDS dating site a few days before. You will hear that she had talked to him and texted him for hours.
You can talk
Sometimes they
to
would
me
talk for
anytime
3
you want to,
hours on the phone.
but Ricky's good at answering things
Nancy Jo
also.
will tell you that Charles told her about everything of his relationship, his wife's beliefs, everything that was going on. And he had told her about this change to the beneficiary of his life insurance. She will tell you it sounded like a lot of drama, but she still was interested and wanted to meet this person, and so they met that evening for dinner. She'll tell you that she understood on the 11th that Charles would be picking up his son, that he was actually going to meet a realtor about finding a place to rent here so he could be closer to JJ, and that he was going to try to get in touch with Adam to meet up. And then they were supposed to meet later in the day. She will also tell you that she actually told Charles, kind of joking, but in a way to end the drama, why don't you just tell Lori that you changed the life insurance policy so she knows it's not her? Nancy Jo will tell you the next day, she texted Charles, she called him, and she actually thought he had ghosted her. She didn't know he was dead until a few months later when she saw something on the news, a photo of him, and actually learned that he had been killed on July 11th. So let's talk about July 11th. That morning, Lori Vallow was up early and she was texting with Chad Daybell. You'll learn that we do not have those text messages. They were not saved in the iCloud, but we have them from the phone records. Alex was already at Lori's house with his gun, and everyone knew that Charles was a punctual person and would be there around 7:30 to pick up JJ so he could get to school. You're going to learn that, like many people, Charles had left his GPS data locating service on his phone. So that means when his phone is moving around, it was constantly documenting with GPS the location of the phone. During this trial, you're actually going to see this data mapped out. You'll be able to see Charles come to the house, and then you're going to see his phone leave with the defendant and what she does all day with it. What we know is that Charles arrived at Lori's house at about 7:35. He texted Adam Cox and told him that Alex
You're okay. And I will say, my drunken wizard, if people come in here that you know, and you know they're being an asshole, like, could you check them before they quietly get booted? You know what I mean? Because we're not going to make a big deal about things. I would prefer people didn't be mean to me. But I know Bible triggers people. Yeah, good and evil do balance, and that's fine. You know, you be the balancing stick of the people you bring in, because I'll just keep talking to people. I don't know. I just keep talking to people. But I got to get back to this lady's opening statement.
or Al is here. You'll see from photos that Alex's truck was parked in the driveway. Adam responded, "Really, I wonder why he never called me back." Charles didn't respond to that. Adam then texted, "They're planning something." And Charles responded, "Absolutely." Adam told Charles, "I was supposed to spend the night at his house last night. She probably blocked that." Charles told Adam, "What you do is up to you." Adam then told Charles he was going to reach out to Alex and ask him to come get him and see what Alex would do. And in fact, he did text his brother. You'll learn that Charles read that text.
Nobody would kick you out, drunken wizard. Don't worry. Hey, Miss Muddy, quit texting while you're driving. Please. You are the first person that ever came in here, so you cannot be the first person to leave here. So quit texting. Yes, you run all the tests you want. You know what to do. Ricky knows what to do. You guys know how to handle it. I'll just talk.
Message from Adam, but he didn't respond. Adam sent one more text message to Charles at 7:49 a.m. on July 11th. He told him that he and his son were going to go play basketball at 8 p.m. to look for a specific church leader who was usually there and have a conversation with him. Charles Vallow never read that message, but you will learn that Lori and Alex did. Charles went to the front door of 5531 South Four Peaks Place, a house that he had rented for his wife, Lori Vallow, a house that he paid for. Charles would have had to knock on the door, alerting Lori and Alex that he was there. He got JJ, put him out in the car, and then Lori Vallow created the reason to keep Charles from just leaving with JJ.
Just when they come in, the rules are no party pooping. Your freedom of speech ends where field beds and rules begin. And you'll get a warning, and then you'll quietly be removed.
Okay. Lori Vallow wanted to stop this intervention. Lori Vallow wanted
That seems pretty simple, right? That's we can do that.
to stop Charles and Adam from trying to take her Temple Recommend away.
Sam,
Lori Vallow, who wanted to be
why
Lori
are you
Daybell,
still in the house?
and Lori Vallow, who wanted Charles's money. So Lori took Charles's cell phone, and she refused to give it back. Lori Vallow, or Lori Daybell, whatever name you want to call her by, is why Charles didn't just leave with JJ that morning. Lori Vallow is why Alex was able to shoot Charles. Lori Vallow is why Charles is dead. I want to tell you a little bit about the scene, this house, so you can understand what's happening here. When you walk in the front door, there's a big room. It was
There's a
empty,
picture.
no furniture. There were mirrors on.
This is bad. Why don't you have pictures? Nobody's gonna be able to picture a room of all mirrors. Like, and it's not even all mirrors. They're like, it's weird. She should have pictures.
On two of the walls, windows on a third wall, and the fourth wall had doorways going into the kitchen and a hallway off to the bedrooms.
You
This
should have pictures.
is where Charles Vallow was killed. This is where Alex Cox shot him 2 times. The first shot to Charles Vallow was to his chest. It exited out his back. Charles Vallow fell to the ground. He put his left hand to this wound, and blood transferred onto it. You will hear from the medical examiner that this shot went through his heart, and that a person can take seconds to up to 2 minutes to die
is
from that
the
type of
heart.
wound.
You're
You will hear
too
that a person can still talk and move after they're shot in the heart. And we know Charles was able to move since he put his dominant left hand on his chest and transferred that blood to his hand. You will see that.
John Lennon walked 100 feet.
As Charles
Andy opened the door.
lay on the floor of 5531 South Four Peaks Place, Alex Cox stood at his feet and fired a second shot. That shot entered his abdomen, and it exited his left shoulder. The angle was significantly upward. Dr. Baumgartner, who is the medical examiner, will tell you that this wound was shored. You will learn that shored means that there was something hard behind that wound. So when the bullet exited it, it caused a different tearing pattern than the other wound that exited Charles's back. It is this shored wound, this exit on Charles's left shoulder, that shows us that there was nothing accidental about this second shot. You will learn from the cell phone that at 7:49, Lori left Charles's house, or left her house with Charles's cell phone, his wallet, his rental car, and JJ and Tylee. She drove to Burger King, Walgreens, dropped JJ off at school before she and her daughter Tylee drove back to the house. During this time, while Lori is driving around in Charles's car, his phone, she spoke with her brother Alex twice. The first call was at 7:52 a.m., 3 minutes after she left. The second call was at 8:06 a.m., 17 minutes after she left. You will hear that when Alex and Lori are talking, neither of them had called 911 yet. In fact, you will hear that Alex didn't call 911 until 47 minutes after Lori left. Charles Vallow lay dead on the floor of that house for 47 minutes before he called 911. During this 47 minutes, Alex began staging the scene and making mistakes. You're going to learn that the police found a bat that was located on the right side of Charles to the north of his head. Like he had been holding it, and when he was shot and fell, it dropped, it rolled up against one of the walls that had mirrors on it.
Okay, well, then they weren't lying about he was going to hit them with the bat. If he was holding it like that, he really was going to hit them with a bat. And he is a professional baseball player. That is kind of scary. But Lori Vallow sucks.
What you're going to learn that is, Alex forgot that Charles was left-handed. In fact, you're going to learn that Charles was a semi-professional baseball player. He pitched and he batted left-handed. So that bat was on the wrong side. Next, you're going to hear about an injury to Alex himself. Lori had told police that
Okay, he staged it like he was going to hit the bat. Okay.
Charles
Never
hit
mind.
Alex in the head with this bat before Alex shot Charles. Classic self-defense. But in all cases, we must look at the physical evidence because it doesn't lie. And the physical evidence doesn't have a bias or a memory loss. Sometimes it's the lack of physical evidence that doesn't lie. So again, we know that this room where Charles was shot had no furniture. Mirrors, 2 walls. You'll learn that although Lori claimed that Charles hit Alex with that bat and then Alex shot him in self-defense, that Alex's gun had no blood transferred on it. Alex was allegedly struck in the head with a bat by a semi-professional baseball player. Doesn't go unconscious, and he never touches that injury. pulls out a gun, is able to shoot this man twice, and then he takes the gun down a hallway and puts it into a room. Never apparently touching his head or this wound. And again, Lori says that Alex was hit with the bat in this room by Charles. But again, what we don't see is any blood on the floor. Charles strikes Alex in the head with a bat. They're grappling on the ground. There's not a single drop of blood on the ground in that room. There's pooling of blood around Charles as he lay there on the ground. There's not a drop of blood going down the hallway to where Alex put the gun. There's not a drop of blood in the room where Alex put that gun. There's not a drop of blood on the floor in the kitchen where Alex went to go wash his hands. There are no towels, sheets, clothing, napkins with blood on them, where Alex was holding his head and trying to stop this bleeding from this injury. You will see on body-worn camera, Alex Cox, who's on with 911, come out of the house.
Miss Muddy, when did they say Alex was bleeding from his head? They said he had a knot, I thought. They didn't say he was bleeding. So she's making up evidence right now.
He will have a phone in one hand and his other hand up, and you will notice that he actually has a pair of sunglasses resting on the top of his head. You will see at some point Alex sits down, and they ask him to move to another location. They talk to him for a while, and then you'll see him eventually touch his head a few times, and then he obtains a napkin or towel, something, and you'll see him at times rubbing his head, patting it. That is the only bloody item you will see. Those sunglasses on Alex's head. He is struck in the head by a baseball player while grappling on the ground. He then pulls out a gun and shoots his brother, puts away this gun, deals with his injury, and yet those sunglasses are still right there on the top of his head.
Again,
No blood on the
nobody,
floors.
where is that in evidence that he had him on his head? She's just making shit up now. I don't like Lori Vallow, but there's no reason to add all this evidence that's not there. Miss Muddy, am I wrong? Again, I'm only going off the evidence they found in the other trial, but I don't remember them saying Alex had glasses on during the fight.
No blood on the gun, no damage to the mirrors, bat on the wrong side, the lack of physical evidence to help support this self-defense claim. Next, trajectory. The medical examiner will talk to you about the trajectory through Charles's body. The detectives are going to talk to you about the trajectory through the room. Dr. Baumgartner will tell you that the trajectory of that first shot to Charles, the one that went through his chest, through his heart, and out his back, was front to back and slightly downward. It will be less than an inch downward. The detectives will tell you that the bullet from that shot, actually, as it exited Charles's back, ended up across the room in the baseboard. They pulled it out and recovered it. Both of them will say that this shot is consistent with Charles being standing upright with a person in front of him. The gun could be slightly down, or his hand could cause that little bit of downward angle. Dr. Baumgartner will tell you that that second shot that entered Charles's abdomen and exited his left shoulder, that the trajectory of that shot was front to back and significantly upward, 13 inches upward. Dr. Baumgartner is also the one who will tell you about that shored wound. What you will hear from the detectives, though, is that when they found Charles on the ground, off to the side of his left shoulder was the other bullet on the ground, not embedded. They'll also tell you that when they finally moved Charles, they took his body away, they cleaned up the blood on the ground, and they noticed a defect in the flooring, in the wood, consistent with a bullet striking the ground. That defect was located where Charles's left shoulder had been. You will hear.
Yeah, I don't remember anybody saying he had glasses on during that fight. Because I couldn't imagine glasses staying on during a fight. Like if they were grappling on the ground, there's no way he kept his glasses on.
That both Dr. Baumgartner and the detectives found the trajectory, the wounds, were consistent with Charles laying on the ground.
CNA Productions, I made you a moderator. So if you recognize the people that you bring in, you can moderate them because you know the good ones from the bad ones. Or whatever, you know what I mean?
Alex being at his feet when that second
So you three are my main three guys.
shot was fired. The physical evidence does not lie. Charles was on the ground when Alex Cox fired that second shot. The injuries to Charles, the location of the bullet strikes, the trajectory of the injuries both in Charles and in the house, all show this was not self-defense. This was a staged murder scene. I told you that Lori.
You know what? When they first did this, if Lori Daybell wouldn't have been caught unsubscribing her children from God's YouTube, she would have never been charged with this murder. That they were already over this murder. Lori had gotten away with it. If she wouldn't have unsubscribed her children, she wouldn't have been caught.
Vallow left the house at 7:49 a.m., and we know this because of Charles Vallow's cell phone. The 911 call was placed at 8:36 a.m., 47 minutes later. The police arrived at 5531 South Four Peaks Place at about 8:41 a.m. Lori Vallow and her daughter Tylee returned to the house at 8:48 a.m. When the police first contacted Lori Vallow, they thought she had no idea that her husband was dead, that he'd been shot and killed. Initially, you will see body cam footage of an officer going up and just getting her information. Lori doesn't ask, why are all these police here? Why is there a fire truck here? Why is my brother sitting on the ground over there? Or is he okay? Instead, she comments about her neighbors. You'll learn that the police then pulled her aside to do what they call a death notification, to let her know that her husband was dead. Only to their surprise, she told them she knew, she was there. So at this point, the police knew they needed to take her to the police station and question her. You'll learn that Lori Vallow was interviewed by the police. She was treated very kindly. The police asked her what happened. Lori Vallow told the police that she took Charles's cell phone. She admitted that she was the reason that Charles didn't just leave and take JJ to school.
And they were still just going to let her go. Look, nobody remembers. But before this, they just let Lori go. They it was self-defense and that was that. If she would not have done that shit to her children, she would have not been charged with her husband's murder.
She told police in no uncertain terms that Charles was demanding his phone back, and she refused to give it back. She told the police that even as Charles screamed at her for his phone, she walked away from him, wouldn't give it to him. No matter what happened or what Charles said or did, she would not give his phone back to him. Lori told police that her daughter, Tylee, came out of the room during this screaming with a bat. That Charles took it away from Tylee, and Tylee fell on the ground. And she told Tylee to go out to the car with JJ. She still didn't return the phone. She told police that Alex came out, that he and Charles got into this scuffle with the bat, that Charles hit him in the head with the bat. She still didn't give Charles back the phone. What she did instead was take his phone and go around that wall into the kitchen. Left the situation. Time to let brother Alex be Nephi. While she's in the kitchen, she said she heard the gunshot, came out, saw Charles on the ground, and her brother standing at Charles's feet. Then she told the police she left. You'll learn that the police actually had no idea that Lori still had Charles's phone. Even when they're interviewing her, she still had it. Police are processing the house, looking for it. Where is it? I can't find it. Later in the afternoon, you'll hear that the police actually called Lori and Alex
Okay,
asked them to
Michael.
come back to the scene. And when Lori arrived, they asked her, told her they couldn't find Charles's phone. And she told the detective that she found the phone in the car. Found it in the car. She gave Charles's phone to Detective Enclan and then provided her with Charles's PIN number to get into the phone. You'll learn that after those interviews in the morning, Lori and Alex went back to Alex's house in Santan. And there they went through Charles's phone. You'll learn that Alex actually took photos of some of the messages between Charles and Adam, including Adam's flight reservations. And he later sent those to his sister, Lori. July 11th. Lori didn't tell any of Charles's family he was dead. She didn't tell Adam that Charles was dead. She certainly knows they'd been talking. The next day, Lori texted Charles's sons from his prior marriage and told them, "Your dad is dead." Charles's sons reached out to their Aunt Kay about this, and you'll learn that Kay and her husband had to Google this, see if it was true. They found out that Charles had been shot. So what about the money? That life insurance policy. Charles Vallow had $1 million life insurance policy. When he got it, his wife, Lori Vallow, was the beneficiary. We know that Charles died on a Thursday, July 11th. That next Monday, July 15th, Lori Vallow called Banner Life Insurance. The call was recorded and you will hear it. She told the agent that Charles had been accidentally shot. It was an accident. And that she was the beneficiary. Both of those statements are not correct. There was nothing accidental about that shooting, and she was not the beneficiary. 3 days later, on July 18th, Lori Vallow learned that she was not the beneficiary. Banner Life Insurance could not and would not tell her who Charles had changed it to. But Lori was angry about it. And you're going to learn that on July 18th of 2019, there's another very important text message in this case. The first one on July 9th between Lori and Alex when they discuss being like Nephi. And on July 18th, 7 days after Lori and Alex killed Charles and Lori learned she is not getting a $1 million life insurance policy, she sends a message to Chad Daybell. Quote, "So I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March. So it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. You can't tell me who, of course, but it's done. I'll still get $4,000 a month from SS." In this text message, Lori tells Chad that it was probably Ned, that evil spirit inhabiting Charles's body, that changed the life insurance policy before they got rid of him, before they killed him. After Lori found out that she was not the beneficiary, she was so angry that she actually went through Charles's laptop, found the beneficiary change form, sent photos of that to Chad, and she also confronted Kay about it. The $1 million she had expected to get was gone, but as Lori told Chad on the 18th, she was still going to get money from the death of Charles. Lori knew already that
No, she is way evil, dude. Her first trial, the one with our kids. Yeah, no, that she's bad. This is a bad lady.
a month before going to see Social Security, how much money she would get for JJ and for herself as a caregiver as a result of Charles being killed. $4,000 a month. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case is going to show you that Lori Daybell conspired with her brother Alex Cox to kill her husband, Charles Vallow. When Charles let Lori know he was coming into town, she quickly got the pieces into place.
Drunken
Alex
wizard.
came to her house with a gun.
You still
Lori
here?
created the way to keep Charles inside the house so that Alex and she could be like Nephi. To kill Charles Vallow to better at least her life so she could be with Chad and she could live off that life insurance policy. As we go through this trial, you will see photos of Charles's injury, photos of the crime scene, and hear testimony that will prove that this was not self-defense. As we go through this trial, you'll be provided with phone calls, emails, text messages, and hear testimony that lays out the motive for this murder: money and Chad Daybell. You will see text messages and hear from people who Lori trusted and who were later pushed away, people who really don't want to be part of this trial, but were pulled into it by this defendant and her desire to get rid of Charles to be with Chad. People who heard Lori for months saying Charles was gone, possessed. People who will establish that this murder was premeditated. You will hear text messages from July 9th by Lori.
That's why I don't have life insurance. No way.
To her brother, Alex Cox, that he had to stay near her, that it was all coming to a head, and she would be like Nephi, and so would he. A justified killing, just like the prophet. And later, the text message to Chad where she told him that Charles changed the life insurance policy before they got rid of Ned. A confession by Lori of how religion and money were twisted to justify Charles's murder. At the end of this trial, the state will come to you and ask you to hold the defendant responsible for the death of Charles Vallow and find her guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
So what do we think about her opening statement? What did you guys think? Hey, Michael, can you pin chat rules? Like, 1, no party pooping. 2, your freedom of speech ends when feel bads begin. Because most of the YouTube rules are people being butthurt rules. So, something like that. And will you pin it? And also, what do you guys think about this opening statement of this lady? I think a few things in there, she added evidence that from what I know about this case, a couple of things she said there is absolutely no evidence of, and I don't even know why she would say it, because from what was said, Alex was never bleeding. Alex wasn't bleeding. So I don't know where that evidence came from, because he had a thing wrapped around his head to cover that knot or whatever that he had. But nobody said it was bloody. Nobody said anything like that. So I'm not sure where they're getting that from. And there was something else. Oh, the sunglasses. N- I, the sunglasses thing, that's stupid, and I don't even know why she would say that. Yeah, now pin it. How do you pin it? Pin. Yeah. How do you pin it? That's a good thing, Michael. But Miss Muddy, are you still here? Pin. Hold on. Pin message. There we go. Yep, there, it's pinned. There we go. I got it. Okay. Okay. So, oh, well, I pinned it. It might be because I pinned it. I pinned it. So, this lady's opening statement. And then we're going to listen to Lori's opening statement, and then we're going to be done. There she is. Okay. The lady that's about to talk is Lori Daybell. She's representing herself. She is the defendant, the one that is accused of this here crime. And she is pro se. Miss Mudduck, what did you think about this? Okay. Okay. So it should be starting now, anytime. Here we go. He's got a nice haircut.
State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell. The attorneys are present, the defendant's present, the jury is not present. We ready to bring in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
That guy looks so bored.
Let's bring in the jury.
She did keep saying the evidence will show. And again, I don't know. I only know the evidence from the other trial. So I don't know all the evidence of this trial. But she's like bringing in new evidence. Is like, I don't remember hearing that. But then they got to keep things close to their chest. But if she would not have hurt her children, nobody would have nobody would have looked at that again. She would have got away with it. All right, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have been charged with a crime, a serious crime. And the only question here is, did I commit this crime? Conspiracy. Conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime.
Yes.
Okay, okay. There has to be an agreement.
No.
There has to be a plan. The
Contract
evidence
work
in this
sucks.
case will show that Charles Vallow and I got married in February 2006. It will show that it was my fourth marriage and Charles' third marriage. At that time, we each had 2 children. I had Colby, who was 9, and Tylee, who was 3. Charles had Cole, who was also 9, and Zach, who was 7. The evidence will show that our family moved from Austin, Texas to Chandler, Arizona in 2009. The evidence will show that Charles and I adopted our great-nephew, JJ, who was born in 2012. It will also show that Charles and I were married for over 13 years and were raising 5 children. The evidence will show that I was a licensed cosmetologist and worked as a hairstylist for 20 years while we lived in Austin, Texas. The evidence will show that Charles was a licensed life insurance salesman and worked as an independent contractor, selling life insurance policies and annuities, and owned his own business. The evidence will show that Charles and I purchased life insurance policies early in our marriage, and Charles had them issued to the maximum amount possible to each of us. The evidence will show that Charles was 17 years older than me, and that because
That's
of Charles'
exactly
age and
what
an issue that he had with high blood pressure, the maximum amount of life insurance that could be approved for Charles was $1 million. The maximum amount of life insurance that I could be approved for because of my age
$1 million is literally enough for a car, enough for a house, and maybe some ice cream to celebrate your new house. Literally, that's it.
and my health was $2 million. The evidence will show that throughout our 13-year marriage that we always had life insurance policies. When a 10-year policy lapsed, Charles would shop for another company who would approve us for the maximum amount of life insurance. The evidence will show that this was Charles' job. This is what he did. I helped him in this business, and this is what he did. The evidence will show that in 2016, Charles repurchased a new $2 million life insurance policy on me, and he was the sole
Absolutely, Miss
beneficiary.
Muddy.
The evidence
Absolutely.
will show that Charles and I had a happy marriage for 13 years. That he was, in fact, a baseball player, and that he played high school, college ball, and AAA ball, and that he was, in fact, a left-handed pitcher, a southpaw, they call him, but he was a right-handed batter, as could be attested to by anybody who knew Charles well and his high school baseball coach, Greg Davis. The evidence will show that Tylee was, and in 2014, our family moved from Chandler, Arizona to Kauai, Hawaii. We lived there for 3.5 years and returned to Chandler in 2017. The evidence will show that Tylee was 3 years old when Charles and I got married, and that when she became a teenager, the relationship between Tylee and her stepfather, Charles, became so difficult that Tylee and Charles had to seek a therapist, a family therapist, to stop them from fighting. The evidence will show that together, Charles and Tylee met with this therapist after we moved back to the mainland in 2017. The evidence will show that in April of 2018, Tylee's biological father passed away from a heart attack. And at that time, Charles called Social Security and made an appointment at the Social
I'm
Security
going to
office.
object to hearsay.
Sustain.
Objection during an opening statement? That's not right. I mean, you can do it, but why would you object during an opening statement? See, that's stupid right there. That's petty. Why would you do that? You know you're going to win. Shut up.
It will show that we did get Social Security for Tylee for her deceased father until she was 18 years old, and she was 15 years old at the time. The evidence will show that Charles and Tylee's fighting increased greatly in January of 2019 when Charles and I temporarily separated. The evidence will show that several people witnessed these terrible arguments between Tylee and Charles that increased to physical in 2019. Charles and Tylee had major increasing arguments, two in February of 2019, one of March in 2019, which was captured on video, one in May of 2019, one in June of 2019, and then the worst of all in July 2019. The evidence will show that in March of 2019, Charles pulled JJ out of his special school and moved him to Houston, Texas, while we were temporarily separated. Tylee and I then joined Charles and JJ in Texas in April 2019 to reconcile. The evidence will show that JJ was diagnosed with severe autism when he was 3 years old while we lived in Hawaii. The evidence will show that for 2 years,
Objection, hearsay. I know, but objection during an opening statement's like, come on. You're stupid. You know you're going to win this. It's like slam dunk, knock it off.
JJ was attending a school in Gilbert, Arizona, a special school for children with autism. It's called Lawrence Life Academy. The evidence will show that in June of 2019, in JJ's best interest, Tylee, JJ, and I moved back to Chandler, Arizona to re-enroll JJ back in Lawrence Life Academy since he had a difficult time with the Houston, Texas schools with no services for his autism. The evidence will show that Charles and I agreed it was in JJ's best interest to be in school where more services were available to him, so Charles and I rented a house here in Chandler. On the day in question, July 11th, 2019, Charles and I were renting two houses, one in Houston, Texas, where he mainly resided, and one in Chandler, Arizona, where I resided with our two minors.
She's using it as an excuse. She's using it as an excuse. It's not a real issue for her. It's an excuse.
Minor children, Tylee and JJ. By this time, our three older boys, Colby, Cole, and Zach, were adults and not living at home any longer. The evidence will show that during the months of June and July, that my husband, Charles Vallow, began to send me threatening text messages. These messages were seen by my sister Summer, and that worried her. The evidence will show that Charles insisted on flying into Phoenix on July 10th, as we've heard from the state. The evidence will show that I advised Charles that he could not stay with us at the Chandler house because he could not get along with Tylee, and I did not want them to get into another fight like they had 3 weeks prior. The evidence will show that it was ultimately decided between Charles and I on text messages that he would stay in a hotel because he traveled for business all the time and stayed in hotels all the time, and that I would book it for him since I worked for him and booked all of his travel. The evidence will show that Charles did in fact fly into Phoenix on Wednesday, July 10th, and stayed in the hotel that I booked for him. The evidence will show that Charles paid to fly my brother Adam Cox into Phoenix from Kansas on the same day, Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles planned to come to our Chandler home and pick up JJ and drive him to school on Thursday morning, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will also show you that Lauren's Life Academy opens its gates at 8:25 a.m. in the morning. And the evidence will show that Charles showed up at our Chandler residence
Michael,
around
yes.
7:30 in the rental car I booked for him on the morning of Thursday, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles began texting with my brother Adam Cox before he entered our residence, and that Charles and Adam were discussing in their text communications that my other brother Alex Cox was at the residence. The evidence will show that on the morning of July 11th,
That was the other thing that prosecutor said, that Adam and Charles didn't know Alex was coming. And it's like, no, they were talking about it. They knew he was there. That was the other thing that the prosecutor said. That was a bit that's misleading. That would have been objection, misleading, facts not in evidence.
Tylee was asleep in her room and my brother Alex was asleep in the guest room. The evidence will show that when Charles entered the house, only JJ and I were awake and present. The evidence will show that after we put JJ in the rental car, that Charles came back into the residence to receive his phone, leaving JJ in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running. He was 7 years old. The evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. The evidence will show that Charles' screaming woke up Tylee and Alex. The evidence will show that Tylee came out of her room with a bat to protect me, her mother, from her stepfather, Charles Valley. The evidence will show that Tylee and Charles fought over the bat, and that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground, and Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat.
No. And my kids would never let me do that. Ever. Oh my God. They would beat me up for sure. My kids would beat me up. Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought happened. They were talking about Alex being there. And I was wondering why the prosecutor said the opposite. He didn't know he was there. It's like, no. Yes, they did. They knew he was there. Tissues coming soon. Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to cry on camera.
The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming. The evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that Tylee, who was on the ground, was lifted up by me and sent outside to get away from the struggle and to protect JJ, who was still in the running car, in the rental car in the driveway. The evidence will show that after this struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I ran away from him into the kitchen.
I'll be right back.
The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. The evidence will show that Tylee and I had both run outside without shoes. The evidence will show that JJ was still in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running and struggling to get out of the car. Tylee was trying to keep him in. The evidence will show that Tylee and I got into the rental car with JJ and drove away. The evidence will show you that I drove the children away from the residence towards JJ's school. Can I grab a tissue?
Yes.
Can I grab a tissue? Yeah, Miss Muddy, you're on point.
The evidence will show that I drove the children through the Burger King drive-thru that Charles had promised JJ. The evidence will show that we continued to drive towards JJ's school and that the gate was not yet open at JJ's school. So we drove a block west of the school to a Walgreens where I ran in to purchase flip-flops for Tylee and myself so that we could walk JJ into school on the hot pavement. The evidence will show that Tylee and I returned directly to our residence where we met with police in our driveway. The evidence will show that we were spoken to by the Chandler police officers. And the evidence will show that Tylee and I were told by the Chandler police detectives that Charles had passed away. The evidence will show that we were put into a police van and driven to the Chandler Police Department. The evidence will show that Alex was taken by police in a police car to the Chandler Police Department, and that we were all three separated into interrogation rooms and we were each interviewed. The evidence will show that next, Tylee and I were brought back together into a room at the Chandler Police Department and were introduced to a victim's advocate who was very kind to us. The evidence will show that after speaking to the victim's advocate,
Miss Muddy, when I first started watching Lawyers, there was a guy that went around on every lawyer's channel. He didn't have a channel. He doesn't have a channel as far as I know. But he'd go on the lawyers and just be a moderator for all of them, but really never really be in the chat. It was weird. He just went around collecting wrenches.
that Tylee, Alex, and myself were put back into the police van and driven back to our residence. We were directed by the Chandler detectives to take the rental car and return later to the residence after we picked up JJ from school. The evidence will show that we did as instructed by the Chandler detectives. The evidence will show that we drove to Alex's residence where we attended to the wound on the back of his head. The evidence will show that Alex was then contacted by the Chandler detectives to return to the residence so that Alex could walk them through the events that occurred with the detectives at the residence. The evidence will show that Alex, Tylee, and I did return to the residence as instructed. And the evidence will show that Alex entered into the residence with Detective Moffett, but that Tylee and I were met by Detective Inklin in the front yard. The evidence will show that at the time, Detective Inklin asked Tylee and myself if we had Charles' cell phone. Tylee retrieved Charles' cell phone from the rental car and gave it to Detective Inklin at 3:11 p.m. on July 11th, 2019. And at that time, Charles' phone was placed in the custody of Chandler police detectives. The evidence will show that Detective Inklin asked us if we knew the passcode on Charles' phone, which Tylee proceeded to give to Detective Inklin. The evidence will show that Tylee and I left the residence to pick up JJ from school.
Miss Muddy, then I'm glad that you spend time on my channel. That makes me feel highly special. If you've got like 5 or 6 other like main channels out there, that means that you spend time on my channel, and I appreciate that.
while Alex remained at the residence with the detectives. The evidence will show that by the time Tylee, JJ, and I returned to the residence, that all police, EMS, CSI, and detectives were gone from the residence and only Alex remained. The evidence will show that the next day, I contacted Chandler Police to inform them that Charles' belongings were still at the hotel. I asked the detective if I should go get them, and I was told that they would take care of it. The evidence will show that I asked the detectives, what should we do next? And they directed us that they would contact us in about 3 weeks after their supervisor passed off their reports and Alex could go to the police station and retrieve his gun. The evidence will show that the last thing I heard from Chandler Police Department until June of 2021, 2 years later, when I received a grand jury indictment from them for this alleged crime. The evidence will show that Chandler Police treated this incident as self-defense.
I'm going to object to that.
Objection sustained. The jury should disregard that last statement.
The evidence will show you that my brother, Alex Cox, passed away on December 12th, 2019, almost exactly 5 months to the day after Charles, my husband, passed away. The evidence will show that Alex passed away from a blood clot in his lung.
Objection again.
What is she objecting to? Shut up. Oh my God, stop objecting. It's a fucking opening statement. Bitch is wild. This is out of control.
Sustain the objection. It's not relevant for this matter.
The evidence will show you that I am the only person being charged with this crime.
I'm going to object to the relevance of that.
Oh my
Sustain.
God. She needs to quit life.
As the state has mentioned, they're alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime.
Murder is a
A
crime.
family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy. Thank you.
Wow.
All right, the state can call its first witness.
Thank you.
No, you can't. Okay. I have to end right here. I have to end. It's 11 o'clock at night. I definitely have to end so I can get up and do my dishes and stuff tomorrow. So I want to thank you for spending time on my channel. I appreciate it. And actually, to tell you the truth, I love court and I love watching court. So if you ever want to watch court, I would gladly watch court. You just give me the trial and interact with me in the chat and I'll watch it with you. For sure. I love court. I like pleading guilty when I go to court because I hate court, but I will watch court. Ever since the Anna Nicole Smith paternity suit thing back then, I've been watching court ever since then. Goodbye, Miss Muddy. I love you so much. Michael. Oh, and we'll pick this up at the same spot tomorrow. It's the first witness. So I'll stop it right here. I'll save it. Okay. So now it's saved. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to tell you, like and subscribe. It's time to give the pillow some head and the sheets some ass and have the sweetest dreams ever. I love you so much. Bye.